sometimes they just change a period to a semicolon and different things. But as a part of, but Immanuel Lutheran has not updated our various bits for a couple cycles. And to be an official congregation of the ELCA, there are certain parts that are required. So I can verify, because I went through the version that you may have clicked through online via the email. I actually had to go through and change all that myself. And so I saw all the parts that are Immanuel specific. But basically those have all been, those are all still there. But then the other language, the parts of the Constitution that have the asterisk, for anyone who has read it, those are required. And so that is what we're changing. That is what we're, that's the formal adoption that I'm proposing at this point. Okay, again, any questions or comments or rants?
Is there anything substantive in those changes that affect the way we operate?
There are some subtle changes, so I guess no, not substantive.
I would say the most significant change is the language that includes deacons as part of rostered leaders, and that defines all essentially lay ministry rostered leaders as deacons. Like that was the biggest language contention thing that came up 2 cycles ago that we haven't updated yet. We already use that language around here, and so it doesn't feel like a big deal to us, but it was quite a big thing at that particular assembly. So that's the one thing that's new and different.
About 4 or 5 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
So I just want to clarify, so the change is to add ministers as deacons.
So constitutionally, it used to only refer to rostered leaders as clergy. And so there was this whole big thing, a whole study and a years-long conversation with deacons and associates in ministry and all of those folks to come up with whether or not they're ordained or not ordained, or they're commissioned, right? Like, it was all of that part of the debate. When it all came down to it, it was determined that we want to use 2 forms of terminology to define all of our rostered leaders. There's clergy and deacons. The deacons are lay people, the clergy are clergy. It's not that distinction, because there are many deacons who have done just as much seminary education as clergy, and there's many clergy who have not done half the seminary education that some deacons have. So that's kind of where it all began to come in. It got really muddy, and people were like, how do you justify this person having more status than this person when, it's not an education piece, right? And so they packaged it all together in the language of the Constitution so that it no longer even makes that distinction. It says rostered leader. Yes. There are specific, there is a section for ordained ministers, and then there is a section for deacons, right? So there's separate parts of the Constitution, so that part didn't change. But they were inconsistent with their language about what deacons were called, and so they consolidated that down into consistency. Every time they're referring to deacons or lay people who are rostered leaders, they're always referring to them as deacons.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, Everyone in favor of adopting the changes to the Constitution as required by the LCA, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, any opposed? Sorry, I didn't ask for that before.
I've got all thumbs up here.
All online. Okay, it's unanimous. I don't need to ask. By our new Constitution, this is a special meeting. We are not allowed to talk about anything else, although I'm sure that doesn't stop us after the meeting stops. So with that, I adjourn this meeting, and thank you for coming.
Is that material?